Lesson 50 for Course 1, decimal number lines and dividing by a fraction. Decimal number lines may be the easier part of today's lesson, less to have to keep track of. With a decimal number line, the key is understanding you have to count the spaces, not the lines, and total number of spaces between the whole numbers gives you the denominator of your fraction. So you need to count how many spaces there are between the 1 and the 2 to find out what fractions are we counting in here. I count 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like, and normally we will be counting in tenths. There's 10 spaces between the 1 and the 2. So we're counting in tenths. That's that total number of spaces between any two whole numbers on the number line gives me what denominator, what fraction am I counting in. Then if I picked a spot like they've got this arrow here, looks like it's pointing to this line right here. So it's kind of nice now that I've got my spaces counted here. I'm going to count. I'm past the 1, but I'm not quite to 2, so it's going to be 1 and a fraction. 1 and 1, 2, 3, and I have to stop there. That's the line we're counting, so 1 and 3 tenths. Can I reduce this? Nope, 3 tenths is completely reduced, so 1 and 3 tenths is my answer there. See how I got my denominator? Counting the total number of spaces there are between any two whole numbers. And then I count the spaces, not the lines. Getting my final mixed number. This one they label y instead of an arrow. It says the distance from 7 to 8 is divided into 10 segments. So we're counting in tenths again. It's past the 7 but not quite to the 8. So we use 7 for our whole number and then we count spaces 1, 2, 3, 4 and stop here. 4 over 10 can be reduced or written as a decimal, 7 and 4 tenths. As a fraction, it would be 7 and 2 fifths. Why wouldn't we write that as our answer, though? Don't think too hard. Why would I write 7.4 instead of 7 and 2 fifths? It said in the question, decimal number, please. Decimal numbers will almost always be counted in tenths, because that's how we count place value, right? At least in the book, that's how it's going to be divided for us, because it's nice and easy. What if they asked us how many quarters there are in $3? Now we're in the dividing by a fraction part of lesson 50. If you think of a quarter as a fourth of a dollar, and we're dividing by that, then you take your $3 and you divide by those fourths, right? How do we divide by a fraction? We multiply by its flipped around reciprocal, right? So really, we're going to multiply by 4 over 1, or just 4, and get 12. Is that a reasonable answer? How many quarters are in $3? There should be a lot more than 3, because we know they're less. There's going to be a handful of quarters that go into 3, so 12 sounds fairly reasonable. You could grab some quarters and add them up to find that. A great way that you would probably do this in real life would be, well, how many quarters does it take to get me to $1, right? And you look in your hand and you see, I group up 4 quarters together equals $1. Well, if 4 gets me to $1 and it asks me how many are in $3, then actually what you'll end up doing is multiplying this 4 by how many dollars I have. That might be the way you would do it in real life, instead of dividing by fractions. That's really what we're doing, isn't it? Doesn't this look like this? We take how many dollars and we end up multiplying by how many quarters were in $1 to get our 12. And that's a great way to think about this. The steps we took, they said how many quarters are in $3. We found how many quarters are in $1. And step 2, final step, use this number of quarters in $1 to find the number in $3 right here. Let's do it in example 2, and then I'll give you some practice problems. This row of pennies, they tell us, is 2 1/4 inches long. From here to here measures 2 1/4 inches. Fair? Diameter of 1 is 3/4 of an inch. This is 3/4. Tells me right here. How many pennies are needed to make the row 6 inches long? So we want to get further, so I get to 6 inches. Well, we know it takes 3 to get to 2 1/4. How many will get me to 6? I don't see a lot of use in this part. I'd rather look at this and just keep it simple. If a penny is 3/4 of an inch, how many get in 6? Well, remember our original steps we learned. It asks us the problem. Step 1, find how many are in 1. How many 3/4 are in 1? Of course, you can only fit 3/4 in 1. But the way that we found this in the quarter problems is, instead of just saying, well, there's only one quarter in a dollar, you can fit 4 quarters in a dollar evenly. 3/4, instead of just saying that you can only get 1 3/4, that's going to make it so we have a lot left over. So actually we're going to say there are how many in 1? 4/3 in 1. Then we use this number 4/3 and we multiply how many we need. 6. 6 times 4/3, I think, gets us our answer. The reciprocal of the diameter, 3/4 is 4/3, multiplied by how many total quarters we need to get. 24 over 3 will reduce by 3. 8 is our answer, right? Let's see what they do on the next page. See how Mr. Otto did. In effect, this problem asks, how many 3/4 inch segments are in 6 inches? You can write it as 6 divided by 3/4. We will take 2 steps. First, we'll find the number of pennies. 3/4 is each in 1 inch. The number of 3/4 in 1 is really the reciprocal 4/3. Not just 1, but 4/3 gets us exactly 1, because any number times its reciprocal is 1. 1 divided by 3/4 is 4/3. Don't convert 4/3. Instead, keep it as 4/3. Multiply 6 by 4/3. So, in effect, they did the same thing. They arranged this differently. I did it as like a missing number problem. 3/4 times what is 1, and I filled in the 4/3. You could do 1 divided by 3/4 is 4/3 for your first step. That second step looked the same, though. Ends up being 8 pennies. Now let's do one here together. Let's look at H. Okay, H says, right here on page 261, H says, write and solve a fraction division problem for this question. Pads of writing paper were stacked 12 inches high. I like to draw these out. This is going to be 12 inches high. And we're stacking these pads up. Each pad is 3/8 of an inch. That's a 3. 3/8 of an inch. How many pads are there in all 12? First, step 1, we find how many 3/8 are in 1. 3/8 times what is 1? Or, same thing, 1 divided by 3/8, how many are in 1? We don't just say 1, we don't just say 2. We want to know exactly how many. So really that's 1 times the reciprocal 8/3. So the answer is 8/3. There's 8/3 in 1. That's step 1. Now step 2, we multiply this by how many there are in total. How many inches? 12. We're going to stack 8/3 by 12. Last trick I want to show you today. You don't have to do this. You can reduce in the final step, but I like to save work ahead of time. We call this canceling. 12 divided by 3. 3 divided by 3. Now I do 4 times 8 is 32. 1 times 1 is, of course, 1. Going across here. 32 is our answer. Does that sound like a reasonable answer? 32 pads in a 12-inch stack. Looks good. I would like you to do A through G. These are real quick up here. Here we go. These are real quick. And then do this one. So you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 problems for me. I already did H for you. Thank you. Good luck.